Hello and welcome everyone. It's great to have you here today for our webinar, How to Simplify Assessor Admin. My name is Helen. I'm the Product Marketing and Engagement Manager here at CloudAssess, and I'll be facilitating today's session for you. Before we get started, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land which we work and live. We pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and to elders past, present and emerging. Now, on to today's agenda. So we're changing things up a little bit and we're introducing a new masterclass series. We've explored this space before with our superhero series, and after a wave of interest from the community, we've brought it back and we're really excited about it. Today, we have an expert on hand to guide you through the following: the hidden admin reality of an assessor's day, the life cycle of a typical activity and where time gets lost, a live demo of how CloudAssess handles it, and we'll wrap it up with a Q&A session at the end. Just to also mention, this webinar is being recorded and we'll send the recording out shortly afterwards. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Miles. Welcome, Miles.
Good morning, everyone.
So Miles is one of our customer success managers here at CloudAssess. He works closely with RTOs and organizations who train and develop their students and staff every day. He knows where admin pressure builds and how teams are using CloudAssess to get ahead of it. So thank you, Miles. I'll leave it over to you now.
Cool. Thanks, Helen. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And I can see some of my fellow countrymen from New Zealand are here as well. That's outstanding. And to our people in Perth, good morning as well. You must have just woken up. So thank you for joining us. So today's webinar about assessor admin. So I was thinking about this webinar in the moments leading up to it. And the motivation for this webinar came from an experience that I gained when I was in operations and hospitality a lifetime ago. So before Australia, before all this, I was in hospitality and in operations for that. And we had multiple venues, multiple staff, 26 venues to be exact, ranging from small 100 capacity all the way up to, well, the biggest Heineken bar in the Southern Hemisphere, really. That was one of ours. And most people would be focused on sales or trying to make the most money from product. But I was more interested in minimizing or reducing things that happen 100 times a week. Like most service industries, there's quite a lot of repetitive tasks involved. Some are necessary, but some can be minimized or even eliminated or delegated out by automation. And CloudAssess succeeds really well in one of those aspects. So today's webinar, like Helen said, is a masterclass that highlights a very specific function within the platform. We look at what it's used for, and then more importantly, we understand the strategy for it. So this particular webinar, assessors and admins are more than welcome to learn from this too, but it's aimed at the operational level of getting your return, essentially. You've spent this money on the platform, or you're hoping to spend this money on the platform, and your question is, how do I get that money back? How do I get a return on my investment in this platform? And today's session highlights one of those returns. So let's start off with why. If anything taught me as a trainer and assessor, the most important question is why. So why does this matter right now? And why is this pressure on RTOs? So the first one, obviously, is the revised standards. This is a performance-based standard now, not an outcome-based or compliance-based. The limits are no longer defined, so it's performance. We have to demonstrate our performance. And the performance that we actually achieve often gets diluted by the admin that gets in the way. And we'll talk more about that word and clarify that word as well. But we'll focus on the academic admin. and what gets braided between training and assessment. There's higher expectations now. Well, that's pretty obvious, actually. I don't think it's ever going to get less. We're always moving towards more expectations. And given that we service adult learners for education, they have expectations. And quick results, faster turnaround, that is it leads to a better RTO and a better future. And this is what people are rating us on now. This is what RTO is being measured by. So this learner experience is the differentiator. And in a world where reviews are everything and feedback is everything and feedback is public a lot of the time, we need to be on point at all times. So this response time, this communication that we have with our learners, it's a flywheel, essentially. It leads to more enrollments, which leads to better reviews, which leads to more enrollments. But that compliance pressure is still at the background as well. Personally, I like the word quality over compliance, but we'll use the word compliance because it is still recognizable. And any missed admin, any follow-up that hasn't been actioned appropriately or late, that easily can lead to a lower learner experience, a lower a lower learner experience and their expectations of us. Automation can help us move away from this space, but the word automation itself doesn't tell us what we need to do. Automation is a function. What we need is a strategy to use automation. And the way I always see it, trainers are best when they're training and assessing. Like, let's not be expecting too much of this. Like, trainers and assessors, they want to train and they want to be there supporting their students with assessments. The admin is just a natural part of their job that keeps the cycle going. But that admin is what we can help improve and help even assist the trainers and assessors through it. So that's what today's session is about. Today's session is looking at the glue that holds training and assessment together for a trainer and assessor and how we can help from an operational perspective. So what does a trainer assessor actually do? I know a lot of people ask this question in a funny way, but let's be serious. The trainers and assessors, they handle preparation for training, delivery of training, support for learners during training, and especially with group-based learning, that's a lot of effort from a trainer. And then it flips to the assessment side where they're preparing assessment environments, preparing their learners, facilitating assessments, assessment support on top of that, and grading. Grading is the part that also the platform can help with. Maybe that could even be the next masterclass, is refining the assessment system in the platform to best suit your courses. The training and assessment is visible, and that's what we want our trainers to focus their time on. The admin in the background are all these little things that happen to keep it together. So sending notifications to learners regarding their results, or chasing resubmissions, or following up on dormant learners, or managing due dates or extensions, or communicating that. Re-engaging learners who have gone quiet. And actually, one point that came to mind, actually, this is for the policy writers out there, they would like this. You can subtly put your policies in the back of this strategy too. And I'll show you what that looks like in a second when we do a live demo. So all of that can come together, and in return, you get a lot of time back for your trainers and assessors. So just to understand the life cycle of a single activity, an activity in this sense could be an assessment. The assessment from a platform perspective is released to the learner. It's then submitted for grading. It's graded by the assessor. A resubmission may be required. There may be a follow-up based on the due dates for it, and escalation if the due date has expired. So all of these touch points happen in just one single instance of an activity or a second submission. multiply that across the cohort, so multiple activities per unit, multiple units in the course, and then multiple students in that course. And that's one offering or intake. Multiple intakes, multiple trainers. You can see how this quickly and exponentially increases the admin load across an entire organization. So what if the admin, in a way, ran itself or managed itself in a way that gave that time back to the trainer and assessor? What if every follow-up was automated? What if every notification was automated? What if the resubmission requirements were automated, due dates, and so on? Cloud Assess has a very powerful function for this. And in preparation for this webinar, actually, this is something we didn't say before. In preparation for this webinar, we improved it slightly. And we'll showcase that now as well. So let's jump into the platform. I have a demo environment prepared already, and we'll have a look at what this looks like. So this is my demo environment. There's no data here from students. There's no data here from trainers. In fact, there's no data at all. We can go straight to the settings. And again, this is a high level permission. So power users out there, you'll have access to this by default. Admins, unfortunately, won't. So you can help with this process by working with your power users. And the magical button we're looking for is workflows. And some of you out there already are probably thinking, I already use workflows. So there's going to be a mix of people in this room, some not using workflows, some using workflows, and some looking for the most advanced applications of it. And we'll cover all of that now. So this page has recently been reorganized so that they're in the order that they usually happen. So in the context of an activity, we have the events from earliest to latest. In the context of a unit, we also have events from earliest to latest. And the last two remain unchanged. So let's look at this page first. Before we start clicking around and start creating things, let's understand the approach. This particular functionality allows us to send notifications and create actions across any of these events. But in a world where people are flooded with notifications, we need to be mindful of how many notifications we put in here. So this page requires a level of restraint, and it's an ongoing exercise. It's not a configure once and forget forever kind of idea. It's a configure once and then wait for feedback, and then come back and tune and adjust, and again, wait for feedback. So this is an exercise in continuous improvement more than anything else, which is a good thing. The pressure isn't there to try and figure out everything at the beginning. The only thing we need to figure out at the beginning is what is most essential to get right at the first time, and what can we come back to as we gain feedback from both trainers and assessors and the learners that are involved with this too. So how are we doing with the comments in the section as well? I'm keeping an eye on that too. So if you see my head darting around like this, it's because I'm trying to catch up with your comments too. Okay, so let's have a look at this list and let's do a storyboard for this activity idea. We'll focus on activities and then we'll look at units, intakes, and users afterwards. So activity, what is the most important event in this list, I wonder? The one that we can't get wrong. Oh, I reckon this one. That's a pretty important event. This is something that needs to be communicated to the learner, and there needs to be a process that automates their resubmission, or reattempt, should I say, and any other communication from there. So let's click on this one and see what's available. We have a number of actions on the right, and our current action list is empty at the moment. So we can see at the bottom here, straight away, our most interested one is the new attempt action. So let's put that there. And it's automatically opened itself for configuration. It's asking us, what do we want to create as a new attempt? Is it a blank version, or is it a duplicate of their previous attempt? In my experience, duplicate is the most obvious choice. If you chose blank, that's also a possibility, but the learner will still have access to their previous attempt. So a duplicate will save that headache of them opening something on the side as well, trying to catch up. In this case, the duplicate refers to their answers, the feedback left by the assessor, and the grades left by the assessor. And this is how the learner can see which questions are correct and which questions need their attention. Activity category. This links to the more advanced functions of the platform. So what we'll do is we'll circle back to this. I'll make a little mental note somewhere. And by that, I mean I'll write it down. Activity categories. There we go. I can't lose that. And we'll come back to that in a second. Maximum attempts. This is important. This is how your internal policies regarding resubmissions can be aligned with this functionality. The most common number I come across is 3, but there is no limit. So this is where you can put the number of attempts that you want to have, including their original attempt. So in this case, set the maximum number of attempts, inclusive of the first attempt. 3 here will be the total. Increment number can stay at 1. Do we want to release the new attempt automatically? Yes. And this is also where we can automatically extend due dates if you do use due dates. This is very RTO specific. Some RTOs don't use due dates, so this part is irrelevant. Some that do can come here and say, let's do an automatic extension based on the previous completed date. And if you want to be very specific, we can do a time as well, 8:59 a.m. So that's the first action under this event for marked not satisfactory. What this means that this action will happen every time an activity meets this event. So take a moment and realize the gravity of that. If you have 100 learners doing 100 activities and they all get it wrong, 100 of these actions will happen in that moment. And then multiply that out by the number of activities they have across their entire course. But this alone is just part of the puzzle, because the story behind this is the function is there, but we want to communicate this at the same time. And this is where we can tell the learner about this happening. And we can even specify for a certain attempt, again, for a certain activity or category, which we'll come back to, and even choose optional things such as including a PDF, hyperlink, and so on. And this is where you would compose your email. So you would say activity not satisfactory, and then a nice email to them on your dashboard. Whoops, today is not a typing day. So this email, you can make it a bit prettier, but for the purpose of this demo, we'll keep it light. This email will be sent to the learner every time they're marked not satisfactory for an activity. So now that we understand one event, let's save this and come back to this screen. We can now see it has 2 actions on this particular event. Now we can see this list in greater context. Now we can see the potential for reducing assessor admin or trainer assessor admin by being able to take pieces away from them in terms of admin. Mark satisfactory, do we want to communicate that? Due date approaching, do we want to communicate that? Due date expired, what happens? So now that the list is in chronological order, you can build your workflows through this. You can start here and then move to the next event that you're hoping to automate, and then keep going until the end of the life cycle. And again, not every event requires something, so don't be stressed in trying to fill out every single one. Less is more, like pizza. Just focus on the ones that are absolutely crucial. And then anything else on top of that can be based on the feedback of your users. I'm keeping an eye on the comments as well. And I can see that email templates have been brought up. So if we have time, I can look at this as well. Email templates simply enriches, actually, no, let's have a look at it now. We're already there. If we look at this action again, there's an option, write new email or use a template. This one here is very straightforward. If we wanted to use a template, we would need to create a template first. And you may be asking why. If the email is already here, why do I have to leave this and create a template and come back? This is a very recent addition, and the reason why it's a good thing, if we hop over here for a second and we create a new one, let's call it not satisfactory templates. Similar kind of title as well, activity not satisfactory. This differs from the standard one because we have something called merge fields, where we can bring in a field and put it into the email, and now it auto-populates with that field. So instead of sending a generic email saying your assessment was unfortunately not satisfactory, you can actually pad it out with a bit more personalization. You can say, dear learner, your assessment recently for, let's have a look for this one, activity name. We can put that in. Your recent grade for this was not satisfactory. And this kind of gives you a bit more dimension in the email that gets sent out to the learner. Sure, there's a bit more work involved creating the templates and then going and configuring the workflows. But for a lot of RTOs out there, this is actually quite important. And if you go back to those why points, the 6 points or 5 points that we looked at originally, learners would value this added level of personalization. So if you do have time, I highly recommend it. And then once you've saved this email, head back to your workflow, find that workflow if it hasn't already been created, and simply say use email template, and there's our new template. The system will throw a small soft alert. So if it's a yellow alert, don't be frightened. It's simply telling you that in case the learner doesn't have a first name, they won't see their name in here. Given that the learner first name is a required field, that's not a problem. Same with the activity name. That's also a required field, so that's not a problem normally. But that's the demonstration in one context. Let's save that, and let's head back to workflows. So now we can start looking at the connections between them. Oh, we've got this comment from Victoria that's catapulted onto the screen. Hey team, thanks for the webinar. The workflow functionality is definitely great. We'd love to see titles displayed for email actions and workflows though. Right now, we have multiple for some events and have to open each one to see what it does. It would help to add a title to each action like email templates so they're easier to identify. We've also noticed the order can change randomly when editing. Ah, yes. That's an interesting little experience point sometimes. Once you start accruing like 6 or 7 actions in here, they will reorganize themselves. And that happens at random. I'm not sure why. We'll definitely look into it too, so I'm glad that you brought that up. But in order to understand this trackability that was brought up in the previous comment, it would be good to put the actual event in the title of the email. So if you go back to the write new email, activity not satisfactory, if we want to trace where this workflow is coming from, the subject for the email is telling us which event it's linked to. So that if you align it with this, then if you have a lot of workflows happening and you need to inspect or query one of them, the subject for the email can point you in the direction of which event it's linked to. Great comment, though. Helen's doing a good job keeping an eye on the chat for me. Thanks, Helen. So that's looking at events in a singular fashion. Once you start daisy chaining these together, then the opportunities start to expand. So for the not satisfactory one, this particular email tells them that it's on their dashboard. It would be nice if we could just give them an email that takes them to the activity instead. So rather than telling them that's on their dashboard, let's do this again. Let's take this off and let's go to another workflow, new attempt duplicate. So because our previous workflow had a duplicate action in it, this event will occur after this one. So we can actually do an event here, new attempt, same message. Recent activity was not satisfactory. Don't panic. Here is a new attempt. Click the link below to start. And this is where we can put a hyperlink to the record as well. And the good thing with this is that this particular workflow will take the learner to their new attempt, as opposed to the previous email that would have taken them to the original attempt that's now locked. And this is how workflows come together. And having a chronological order now allows you people to see this clearly now. So one event leads to the next event, which could then lead to another event, such as a due date expired. And this is where escalation can come into as well. So take your time with this page and formulate your own strategy. Have a think about the life cycle of your activities. Have a think about what needs to be communicated. And then slowly piece this together in sequence. And take your time and test as you go. The unit context is a similar regard. A little bit more straightforward because unit results tend to be more final, but there's subtleties in there as well. So we could communicate to someone when a unit is commenced. You could also communicate when things have been marked or approved in quality check. Anyone out there with integrations with student management platforms, this is where you would also see an additional action called update SMS. And this is how if results are pushed back to your student management system. My particular demo account is not integrated with the student management system, but if yours is, you'll see the update SMS. And perhaps just looking at time, just to be mindful of time, the most underused workflow is this one here, learner inactivity. And learner inactivity is based on the last seen time bracket that learners sometimes fall into. You might notice this on your dashboard. So if you go back to the dashboard for a second, you'll see this tile here, tracking that, as well as on every single profile. So if you go to any profile, we can see when the learner was last seen anyway. But this workflow allows you to escalate this in various ways. So the first email could be to the learner. Where are you? The first email can go straight to the learner and simply be a soft reminder that we haven't seen you on the platform for a while. Reach out if you need any support. But then you can now add another email and escalate it to 2 months and say to the assigned assessor this time, learner missing, please investigate. Again, this can be reflective of your courses. And again, email, this time to a specific user. This could be someone like a training coordinator or similar. And say, learner missing. Please investigate. So just from this one event, we've created a system that escalates learner inactivity first to the learner, then to the assessor, and then to a specified contact on the platform once it reaches a point, 3 to 4 months, once it reaches a point of concern. And again, this is all things that the platform can do for you rather than putting that stress back onto the trainer and assessor to keep track of. This is a much sharper way of doing it. It's data-driven, there's no delay, and you can subtly inform people in the background of the platform. How are we doing for time? Ooh, few minutes left. The comment around activity categories. So activity categories opens up a more complex side of the platform. These are the standard activity categories, and this one here is a custom one. We can create custom activity categories in the platform, associate those categories with activities in the framework. So every activity in here has an activity category in some way. Once we assign a category to an activity, usually shown in the details, there it is, activity category. In this case, there is none. We can then now create workflows that target that specific category. So this is even more dimension to a page that already has a lot of moving parts to it. So if we wanted to give a very specific email to those that are satisfactory for AI-generated assessments, AI assessment complete. We can now tailor this workflow to only target this category of activities on this event. And given that the number of activity categories you can have is infinite at this point, I don't think there's a limit in the platform. Your workflow page now has multiple levels of depth because of the multiple activity categories you can have on every single action. Whether it's submitted, we can have an email targeting a certain activity category. We can have a due date notification system specific to a type of activity category. The list goes on. So the more you spend in this, more time you spend in this page, the more opportunity there is there. And this webinar is to help highlight the potential of this page, this one page alone. And each of these masterclasses will hopefully do the same. I know time is running out, so let's jump back into our slideshow. And let's have a bit of a debrief from this. And the idea is to find efficiencies in the repetitive ideas throughout the platform. So whenever there's a task that's repetitive, the more we can minimize that, the more time comes back to your organization. So the questions from the session, please send them through. You can drop them in the chat because I think we've still got time, haven't we, Helen?
Yeah, I'm just going to whiz through the ones where I starred them because I think they're still questions that you need to answer.
Yes, so Anna Watts, automatic due date extensions. Does it get recorded that they have been extended? Interesting. Not as such, it's not on the timeline. It happens automatically when the activity is created. So the due date extension is part of the creation of the activity. It's not part of the timeline of the activity. Only when it's done by an actual person does the timeline record that the due date was reset or edited. It's not a bad suggestion, actually, that the due date was modified on the creation of activity. Leave that one with us. I'll have a chat with the team to see what we can do around timeline accuracy. It's a common question that comes up around the timeline. Leave that with us. I like that idea. What else have you got, Helen? Can the text size be increased in the demo? Oh, that would have been handy about half an hour ago. So,
sorry, I did mention that to you. Sorry, Mary, I'll just let you know, you will be able to zoom in when you watch it afterwards.
Email templates are now available for this. Yep, we can do that one. Can we have a due date past workflow created? Sent once as well. We have set it up that multiple activities will become overdue on the same day. Okay, so due date past, that's the expired workflow. Let me zoom in this time. So there we go, due date expired. This particular event will only happen once. The system won't send multiple reminders. So once the actual event occurs, whoever is nominated in these emails will get notification of that. So the assessor or the contact or anyone else. But this event only happens once unless the due date is then changed and then that expires again, then this workflow will happen again. Hopefully that answered the question. Is there an option for communication when a task is in review? We struggle with a communication cycle where a task is assessed by an assessor as satisfactory, but then goes into review and can be subsequently marked as not satisfactory. It can be confusing to learners when this happens. Interesting. This relates to another function in our platform called quality checks for context. And part of the system allows activities to be thrown into quality check for review. Could you bring that question back, please, Helen? Communication cycle where a task is assessed by an assessor as satisfactory, but goes into review. Okay, so in this case, there's an event that occurs between you reviewing it and you marking it as satisfactory or not satisfactory. And that particular workflow is this one, rejected. So you would technically reject the record before you mark it as not satisfactory. So in this case, you would do both of these actions. You would say unlock the unit enrollment if it's been marked as competent, and then email the assessor, irrespective of attempt, and if you want to, by category. Activity rejected. This activity was rejected at quality check. Please review the comments. Whenever you reject a record, whether it's an activity or a unit, the system will force you to leave a comment. Assessors can see these comments when they look at the details of that activity. But quite often they won't know to look there unless they're told to look there.
Awesome.
Any more questions, Helen?
Ready for another one?
Are the assessments being graded in the platform or are the results coming from an API? I don't quite understand that question. Assessments being graded in the platform or are the results coming from?
We can email you, Craig, and find out and get some more information if we're not too sure on that one.
Yeah, that's a bit of a fuzzy question. I don't quite understand the API link to it. Yeah, happy to chat via email.
David has a question.
David, he's my buddy. Past due email. No, it's it's a good question. Can that be sent to multiple recipients? Yes. So due date expired. There's no limit to how many email actions we put in here. The only limit comes by way of ridiculousness. We don't want to go to a point where we're informing everyone. We want to be conservative around how many emails are happening. Most commonly the learner, most commonly the assessor, and based on your organizational processes, possibly an intake contact if a training coordinator is attached to that particular intake. So it kind of hovers between your org structure of things too. But yes, short answer, multiple recipients, very easy. And specific users, you can have multiple specific users in here as well. I think I'm the only user on this platform, so I'll just add all of myself to it. Any more questions, Helen?
Yep. We've got Shane.
Are there any workflows that can tell someone that a quality check needs to be done? No, that's a gap. It lands in the dashboard for power users and admins with permission to do quality, but there isn't a notification that says there is something in quality check. I think you've discovered a new workflow. And that's a very easy one to put in. Well, I say easy. The developers might not say that, but I say easy. And I reckon that would just sit comfortably on both sides, just above the approved rejected one, when it says review on both activity and unit. So good job, Shane. That is going on the list.
Awesome. And then Emily.
Question about tasks in review. Current flow is task assessed by assessor as satisfactory, goes to review, reviewer assessed as not satisfactory, task returned to students. The assessor is caught in the middle of all this. Can this be streamlined so once the task is in review, the reviewer becomes the primary for assessing it? I would be more concerned why the assessor isn't grading this correctly in the first place if it's happening this often. If the assessor is grading it satisfactory, it goes to review, the reviewer overturns the grade, and it keeps going. I would focus more on that as the stem of this problem rather than a way to remove the assessor from the assessment. If the assessor isn't able to grade this, then they shouldn't be assigned in the first place. So this is more of a root cause analysis rather than a patch with a workflow.
Okay, thank you. There's one more from Jane.
Headers and footers. Oh, headers and footers, that would be nice. I think at this point, what have we got? We've got pictures. So you can insert an image. When emails are sent out from the platform, your branding automatically applies to it. So any logos on your account will automatically appear on the email. But if you wanted to add more to the email itself, there is an option to insert an image. So if you had a banner or a header, I can't see why not. In fact, I'll be interested to see what the results. So if you do experiment with that, send me a screenshot. I'd like to see it. One more?
And then one more from Katie.
Oh, due date functionality for forms. Oh, I like this. So forms we haven't looked at. Forms are very unique because forms can have their own workflows. The workflows we just looked at for the last half an hour or so, those are more account-wide for activities, units, and so on. Forms, however, also carry their own workflows, and these workflows are specific to that form. So every form can be unique. There isn't a due date on this. And the reason why is that forms and activities differ by one key functionality. Activities are compulsory, forms are optional. We can look into this and say, can we add a due date to the form? Like most things in this world, if there isn't a due date, then it's not going to get done. That's definitely something that we can explore. But the due date would be simply a guidance. It wouldn't be enforceable as forms in general aren't compulsory. That's a larger piece point. But yeah, happy to explore.
Awesome. Shall we wrap up? And then if there's any other questions, you can always email me back when you get your emails after the webinar.
Happy days.
So yeah, if you want to nav to the next page, Mars. Just wanted to thank you so much, Miles, for sharing your wisdom with us today. That was absolutely amazing. We hope you guys all found it valuable. And just to let you know what's next, you're going to receive 2 emails, one straight away with a survey in there. Please complete that survey. We really want to know what you want to know and what you want to have as a webinar next. And then in approximately, we always say 48 hours, you'll receive the recording. Just a note that also I'm going to include in there the link to the news center. That's where we post all of our feature updates. So keep abreast of that page. The dev team are doing an incredible job. They're releasing multiple features a week at the moment. So that is the best place to go to get up to date with that. So Miles, thank you once again. Thank you, everybody. And we'll call that a day.
Thanks, everyone.